Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I continue with my contribution, I would like, most likely, if he's so minded, he will respond in his rebuttal. The Minister of Finance said that these amounts, the 54 million EC dollars that he is borrowing now, was already considered or was already included in the budget. Earlier on in the same speech, he said that that loan was a response to COVID, and he also said that he'd repurposed some of the loans from the same Exim Bank, some of the roads, some of the money that was borrowed for road construction. So I just need to find out what really is it. Is it a response to COVID, the $20 million? Was it already accounted for in the budget? That means at the time of the budget, we knew there would have been COVID. Or free, whether it was a repurposing of the Taiwanese loan. Just want to find out. I'm not that. Just need to find out, because three things were said. Three things. Which one is correct? I'll say it again. One, the Minister of Finance said his last expression was, these loans were already accounted for in the budget statement. First statement. Early on, he said that is a direct response to COVID because of the downturn in the economy and revenue because of COVID. And in the same discussion, he said that he'd repurposed some of the Taiwanese loans. He said these three things in three. So I just want to get a clarification. It's just my right to ask that. Mr. Speaker, we're borrowing now another $54 million for COVID response, Mr. Speaker. And that is in addition to the $81 million we did before the COVID crisis response, another $77 million from the IMF. This is $212 million we've borrowed directly for COVID. That is notwithstanding the amount that up to this day, we do not know what's our balance on the ECCB. We haven't heard what the balance is. We heard that the government has used their facility at the ECCB. We do not know the balances. We haven't been told the balances. We know that the overdraft limit is $55 million. The Prime Minister said this morning that they had increased the overdraft from the bank, from the commercial banks. We do not know exactly how much it was. And these are things that the Prime Minister said, and it's my right to ask for clarification. He said that he'd drawn down on the ECCB balances. He said that he'd increased the overdraft, and right now he's doing his borrowing from COVID. And Mr. Speaker, this is serious business. We're not in the business to score points and come after people. We're in the business to get clarification in what is a serious situation in this country. The government pretends that they are living in an alternative reality. Mr. Speaker, things are rough in St. Lucia. Families are suffering. People are finding themselves without food at their homes. This is a serious situation. So we can come here to score political points and go after people. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, even if the government is living in an alternative reality, things are rough. People are suffering because their lives and their livelihoods are being affected, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the electricity response that the government, Mr. Speaker, you know, it's okay for us to sit down because we have our businesses, we know how to make money, we know how to make money for ourselves, we boast about our ability to make money and laugh at people. That's what we want to do in this house, because we know what's in our pot, how we are living, how how we know how to make money, how we can exchange 5 cents to 5 million. But other people cannot do that, Mr. Speaker. So when I stand and I speak, I'm speaking for the majority of people in this country who are suffering in spite of what we stay here and we do. In spite of what we do here, people are suffering. Middle-income people, Mr. Speaker, are suffering because in most of the houses, some people have lost their income from the hotels. And those who have gained their income is less than before because their service charge has decreased, Mr. Speaker. So the reality is, we have to make a serious understanding. We have to understand seriously, what is the situation in St. Lucia. And when we debate, and that is why, Mr. Speaker, I took part in the initiative by the Chamber of Commerce. Because I thought it was one occasion where the hands of the politicians would not be in it. And I asked for equity in how the benefits of that initiative would be dispensed among the people. It was the hands of the politicians, the hands of I'll make you cry. That was not there, Mr. Speaker. The hands of I'm going for you, I'll take you on. That was not there. That is why I took part, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so I am very concerned, Mr. Speaker, that this $54 million loan that we are taking, Mr. Speaker, and it's a relatively short-term loan. Again, I want to get clarification from the Prime Minister. He said that the loan is for 15 years, a 15-year duration. What I read here is the loan is repayable in 30 consecutive installments, and it is must be paid on the last day of the 66-month period from the date of advance on the loan. Can I get some clarification? He said 15 years. And 66 months is 5 years, and the 40 consecutive months is 2 years and 6 months. So I really need to get, so that, to me, that looks like 96 months. He said 15 years. So it's a relative short-term loan, Mr. Speaker, as far as I see. Hmm? Which one?
Continue on, remember.
So, Mr. Speaker, I really want to get, Mr. Speaker, from the Minister of Finance, a full account. Firstly, a full account of how the original COVID crisis response, the $77 million from the IMF was spent. What we got in the Parliament was 15.5 million EC dollars. The report that came to the Parliament was for 15.5 million EC dollars. What was spent, what was borrowed was $77 million. So there is need, if not today, at some point for the government to give an account of how that was spent, because we know that the respiratory hospital is still under tremendous pressure, Mr. Speaker. We also know that our future projections for our tourism industry may find itself flawed, because there's a cry now for a second testing, not only from the opposition, but from people in the industry, from the medical people, that there may be need for second testing. I want to find out where the government intends to do that, and whether some of these resources will be used for the costing of the paying for that second testing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the COVID, the Prime Minister made a point about the decline of GDP, the decline in GDP of 18 to 26%, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to just bring your attention to a World Bank report in 2020, when it predicted that the economies of the region, the economies of the OECS, St. Vincent with a decline by 5.5%, St. Kitts by 8.1%, Antigua by 10.8%, Grenada by 8%, and Dominica by 4.7%. We are speaking about the economy that was beautifully managed, that would have growth of 4% before, and how our revenue was overperforming, and we were the best managed economy in the region. I'd be grateful if I can get the reasons why it seems, I can be corrected, it seems that our economy has declined more than any other economy in the OECS, according to a World Bank report of 2020. There must be a reason for that, Mr. Speaker, because we were the best managed economy. We had the gurus managing our economy. Mr. Speaker, I heard this morning, I hope I get a copy of the statement by the Honorable Prime Minister about debt management. And he spoke about the year 2020 and the year 2021. As far as I know, the period of St. Lucia, 21, and he spoke about the year 2022. He spoke about March 2021 and March 2022. As far as I know, according to the Constitution, unless we become a little Trumpian, the people of St. Lucia will have to make a decision before March 2022. So I'm a little concerned that the government of St. Lucia, they are making projections and taking serious policy decisions when between now and September's maximum, they may very well be a lame duck government. I would hope that the government would have,
Honorable members.
I would hope, Mr. Speaker, that the government would consider the fact that the people of St. Lucia will have a decision to make at its latest by September 2021, before they make plans for 2022 and 2023. So, Mr. Speaker, I am very concerned that the use of that COVID response money is not for political purposes. I have heard nothing about the DFCs, the direct finance contracts that are being given all over the country. I don't know how that is included in the debt profile. If it's included, I know very soon we are going to be debating the finance management bill, and we're going to be debating the public procurement bill. But as we speak, roads have been built, all without public tender, all at amounts that are just stated on the radio, not by the chief engineer, but just people who I don't know about their engineering genius, are just making statements about how we choose a contractor for $15 million. Just because I was appalled by a gentleman, and I'm talking about borrowing, Mr. Speaker, a gentleman on the radio saying how he chose $15 million, and then he chose this one because that one didn't have enough money to do it, Mr. Speaker. I know that roads are under the direction of the chief engineer, and when there's a special projects unit, the chief engineer oversees that special projects unit. Is my right, Mr. Speaker? Because that $15 million is going to be repaid. It has to be repaid, Mr. Speaker. So whereas we speak about all these big plans for papers, documents, Mr. Speaker, these realities must be discussed. It's our right to discuss them, Mr. Speaker. It's our right. So I would like to know, in this borrowing, this revenue gap that we have, it was $298 million, then I heard it was $218 million, Mr. Speaker. 298 in the same speech, 218 in the same speech. Which one is right? We have to, Mr. Speaker, we have to discuss the people's business in a way that is transparent, that is accountable, even though the news may not benefit our political song or our political position. We need to see it in a transparent way, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that part of that money also is supposed to be used for the revival of the tourism industry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are several small hotels that have not opened. There are many small hotels that have not opened, Mr. Speaker. the people who have the Airbnb, they've not opened because they have not met the COVID protocols. They ought to be able to share in any increase in the tourism revenue, Mr. Speaker. We need to, I hope some of that revenue would be used, some of that money, sorry, that loan would be used to help them to get back on their feet, Mr. Speaker. Because there is reality out there. There's a reality that some of us may not be feeling. And I'm not imputing any improper motives. All I'm saying is there's a reality out there that some of us may not be feeling. And we have to come to grips with that situation. We did not cause COVID, but we must understand because of COVID, people are suffering. And no one in this honorable house would like people to suffer. But the reality is people are suffering, Mr. Speaker. Even churches are complaining that their revenue is decreasing. Even churches are complaining, Mr. Speaker. So it's a serious. Small businesses are closing. This is reality. This is reality, Mr. Speaker. And I really hope that we understand that this is reality. That we can come here and attack each other. We can come here and laugh. We can come here and go for each other. But the fact is, out there, people are suffering. There are people who do not have food. Children who are out of school, they have no devices to get their, to learn, Mr. Speaker. And whereas in the great United States, with all its social benefits, people are suffering. There are long lines. You can imagine in this country, Mr. Speaker, what's happening. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, that whilst we borrow that money, and our party will have absolutely no issues in improving the lives and the livelihoods of the people of St. Lucia. So I appeal, Mr. Speaker, for equity, for balance. I also appeal for a touch of reality, because what is happening in this country is serious. And we have to understand that and stop living in an alternative reality. Because facts are, our people, many of our people are suffering, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.